NBA fans got a double order of 50 burgers with the side of LeBron James triple-doubles last night. Giannis, Wemby, and LeBron put the team on their back, and it has us wondering, is the Big Three now the Big Uno? That's today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Doug Branson, host of the Locked On Hornets podcast, and your shot clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We have the great Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we have the great Hayes. Matt Hayes, we've got a lot to talk about. A lot of amazing performances last night. And I thought for sure we'd be kicking off this show starting with Victor Wembanyama's 50-point performance. And then Giannis went ahead and almost racked 60 in an OT win over the Pistons. That's not to mention the box score lines that we've seen from Nikola Jokic this season and LeBron. They're both putting up amazing numbers as well. And we're going to get to Wemby soon. Don't worry about it. He put up a 50-point performance. We'll talk about it. But my question is, on all of these monster performances, singular performances from all NBA level players, is that what it's going to take for these stars to hold up their teams under a new collective bargaining agreement that's making it harder and harder for teams to assemble these multiple superstar lineups, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something to this, right? With the idea of the Bucks and the Nuggets in particular are in similar places, built around a singular star who does everything, former MVPs, current MVPs, the supporting cast with some key pieces, but some injuries in there as well. Chris Middleton, Aaron Gordon's out for the Nuggets. And that's like pretty normal stuff. But what we do see is that because of the lack of depth, these guys are having to put up absolute monster numbers. Like you talk about it, Giannis, amazing performance. Look at those numbers. It's absolutely incredible to get an overtime win over the Pistons, who again, like I think the Pistons are pretty good. The Bucks should not need 59 from Giannis to get past the Pistons. But this is the situation that I think these stars are finding themselves in. If you're not an equal, like a more distributed, talented team like Boston, hey, these stars are going to have to put up monster performances to get wins right now.
Yeah, the stars are going to have to put up monster performances, and I think that's the way that it's going to have to be done right now. Now, as teams adjust to the CBA and realize that they need to stop wasting draft picks and probably scout a little bit better and do better at drafting players that can actually they can develop and having development plans, then maybe you can go back to having multiple stars on the same team. You just have to be smart about how you draft. But in this time period, while teams are still adjusting, and it's going to be years before they completely adjust to the new CBA, we're going to see big numbers, ridiculous numbers from players because it's just needy. Look at what Giannis and Jokic are doing on a nightly basis. Like, it's crazy.
And we've seen over the past couple of seasons, big-time role players going for like 3 or 4 first-round picks. And so I don't know if that's a recognition that teams understand that like having those Drew Holiday-level role players is essential to holding up the team, or if it's sort of to Hayes' point, kind of hamstrung some of these teams that are trying to build out.
Yeah, and I think that there's probably something there too with like the teams that are extremely well built have managed things so well. There's a big gap here between, in the early 2000s, there were teams that were terribly managed and everybody got pretty good, but now we have like the elites where OKC, they're without Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, still rolling through teams, right? Boston, absolute juggernaut, just rolling through. The Cavs are in a unique situation because of where their contracts are at to have kind of a better distribution here. And that's what I think is just going to be interesting to kind of watch here is how does this kind of work out over the long term with these teams. A team like the Warriors, I think, is really interesting because they're trying to kind of blend things after going backwards and kind of sliding down. Now they've got more role players around Steph and Draymond, but that meant Clay departed. So trying to find the balance of how much talent do you need and what are those stars going to have to do to keep you afloat, I think is a big question with where the CBA is at.
Yeah, and Hayes, I mean, how is this all going to marry with seemingly every team's caution with star minutes and games played if so much is going to be put on the back of particularly some of these older stars. I mean, how is all of that going to work out?
I mean, you're just going to have to hope and pray. Like, injuries are a part of the game. And unfortunately, it's a part that you can't really avoid too much. Like, yeah, you can try to put yourself in a position where you lessen the chances of things by workload and stuff like that. But, like, I mean, we're going to see freak injury. Like, look how many injuries you saw in the first week of the season. Those players weren't overworked. It wasn't because they had played too many minutes at that point. So at some point, it's just part of the game. It's part of the nature of the sport. Of course, you're going to want to do what you best can with your training staff and things like that to avoid as many injuries as you can, but you can only do so much.
Preacher. Thank you. Thank you. Injuries happen. There's all this conversation about the injuries being up this season. Hayes is spot on. Like, it's just going to be, this is part of it. You got to try and avoid, we have to avoid injuries so guys can't play because otherwise they'll get hurt and not play. It's part of it, man. This is sports.
Yeah, we're definitely in some kind of realignment. I mean, even the Boston Celtics, they don't have a traditional big three. Everyone's trying to think about this a little bit differently. It reminds me of what's going on in baseball with the pitching realignment. It used to be you knew who your starters were. Now all of a sudden there are these days where you have these sort of pitching by committee situations. And so one wonders if that may be where we're heading, or maybe Philadelphia might already be there with how they're treating their stars. Okay, lots of game action last night, lots of amazing performances, and there are almost too many to count last night. But I'm greedy and I want more, so let's play what is becoming a staple segment here on the Locked On NBA podcast. Give me more. I mentioned LeBron James. Let's hear from Locked On Lakers, the Kamenetsky brothers, discussing the old man and the 3 straight triple-doubles.
It really was like LeBron put the team on his back and pulled them back in with some old man strength. There was a sequence where LeBron, he just drove into Zach Edey. And like Zach Edey ended up getting called for the foul, but it was just very funny. It was like a very old man, like, yeah, I can still do this to you, Paul Bunyan.
I can't go over you. I can go through you.
It wasn't quite Kobe running through Powell's chest, but it was still impressive.
You mentioned that, like, what I loved about late stage Kobe, he wasn't exploding over people while Kobe liked to pretend like I wasn't that good an athlete. Dude, you want a dunk contest? Shut up. You saw the craft. And I think what is so much fun about LeBron over the last, few games especially, you really see a guy who just is so far beyond everyone else on the floor in his understanding of what is happening and where to go and what the pass is. It's just amazing to watch someone when you see not just the athletic skill, but the mind that is fueling it.
All right, you didn't know that you were going to get a LeBron-Kobe comparison, but you got it. So yeah, you're welcome to chew on that, Hayes. But first we're going to do Gimme More. More impressive to you. Giannis 59, 14, and 7 in an overtime win in which his team didn't seem to be able to make a shot. Or LeBron keeping the Lakers relevant in the West with 3 straight triple-doubles.
I'm going to go LeBron because it's 3 straight triple-doubles, but not just that, it's 3 straight wins as well. Like, that's the most important part of that. They've gotten the wins while LeBron's been performing like this. And it like what LeBron's doing at this age, and I'm going to say this a lot while we're doing the show because LeBron's going to have these stretches 5-6 times a season, but like, it's ridiculous to see what he's able to do. And he goes into this mode where it's like, you'll forget his age and he goes back to like near prime LeBron. And so I'm going to say LeBron's more impressive right now because of the age, because of the consistency, and because of getting the wins over that time as well.
Oh, yeah, they're getting wins. Beat the Raptors. They beat the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. Let me spin this little finger up here for you. I will go with Giannis because he was an absolute monster and beasted what is a much tougher physically athletic team in Detroit than I think people give it credit for. You want to know who actually I think was more impressive, though, last night? How about Zach LaVine? 37, 7, and 8 and a win over the New York Knicks. How about that win? That was a huge win for the Bulls last night. That to me was like more impressive just because of the competition that he was facing. I'll give Giannis the edge here, but as far as LeBron goes, Lakers are 6-0 at home, 1-4 on the road. Congrats. You can catch teams when they're dealing with LA nightlife flu. Let's see you actually go on the road and get a win.
I love that. I love 3 straight triple-doubles, and Matt Moore comes and hits him over the head with a frying pan of do it on the road. I love it.
Come on, old man, travel.
All right. Coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast, Victor Wembanyama dropped his first 50-point game. Was it more about his alien technology or was it Washington wizardry? We continue with Gimme More next on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes buying tickets to your next event easier, and I'm not just talking about sports. Game Time has great deals on concerts and events as well. And with Game Time Picks, they gather up all of the best deals and put them all into one place. And I love that because I don't like to do a lot of work, much less extra work. And so they take all of that out of the equation, and give you the best deals all in one place. That's not all. You can also get seat views, which is a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and they have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Here comes the spell check, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team, by the way, has a free and daily newsletter, so go make that your first read. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe, and stay up to date with local expert analysis. You get amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Okay, I promised I'm going to deliver. Victor Wembanyama has started the year fielding tough questions about his shot selection and physicality, but last night, he let his game do the answering. He put 50 on the Wizards in a win. Here's Jeff Garcia, host of Locked On Spurs, with his reaction.
He did it all. It was inside. It was outside. It was in the paint. It was from the three line, something that he's been talking about a lot that he wants to get better at as the season goes on. You know, he brought up an interesting point ahead of the night versus the Wizards, where he said some nights he's going to go 66% from the three line. Some nights he's not, only 25%. Well, yeah, he said to take that in stride, and boy, did he. Incredible night. He is the real deal. He is the cornerstone for the Spurs, and dare I say, he could be the face of the franchise, face of the league, not necessarily the franchise, the entire NBA.
All right, give me more. Was Wemby's game more about his own brilliance or more about the Washington Wizards being an abomination unto basketball, Matt?
Anthony Edwards, last April, 51 points. Joel Embiid, last December, 50 points. Victor last night, 50 points. Joel Embiid back in November, 48 points. Nikola Jokic, who never runs up these big scoring totals, 42 points.
What's the connection?
The Washington Wizards being the opponent. I am ready to go ahead and motion for a change in our record keeping, Hayes. All stats against the Washington Wizards should not count historically. You do not get credit for throwing up big numbers on this throw up of a team. They are absolutely, it is incredible how bad Washington is. Last week they got obliterated by a Memphis team that was missing everybody. Jalen Wells was going off on him. You cannot take performances against this team seriously. It's great that Victor put up some numbers in practice time. That's legitimately good development. And this goes to show you those numbers. Everybody does this. It's not just Victor beating up on bad teams. All the other stars do too. That's part of the NBA. I'm just saying, whenever you see a big scoring performance, make sure that the Washington Wizards are not the team that they're playing before you take it too seriously.
I mean, putting up 50 is putting up 50. Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Is it?
Here's the thing. Even with how bad the Wizards are, not everybody's putting up 50 every night against the Wizards. Like, especially with what Wemby has and how he's settled for. Go ahead.
Not everybody's putting them up. I got one. Can I just make one for you? Then I'll let you. Anthony Simons last year put up 41, man.
Yeah. Anthony Simons is a heater. I mean, so I'm not saying that like we should like, of course there should be tiers of when you put up the 50 piece. Like, I understand that, but like, it's still special to put up 50 points regardless of who's it against. Like, and here's the thing. I hope that everybody, one player, every game should get up 50 against the Washington Wizards. So at least that way they'd lead the league in something.
That's great. Brooke Lopez last November, 39 points versus the Wizards.
When are you going to run out of names?
I'm not, man. I have to keep scrolling to find the end of the 30s.
I'm going to stand up for Victor in one respect. I think he did it in 28 minutes. I mean, that's insane.
That was pretty sick.
28 minutes to do that. And another thing that was brought up with his 50-point performance, and this has been brought up a couple of times. It's the first time I've really seen this term being thrown around. But people are talking about ethical scoring, meaning big scoring performances that aren't generated a majority from the free throw line. People are rejecting the James Harden, the DeMar DeRozan level scoring from the free throw line. I want to know your opinion on that. We'll start with you, Matt. Are you into the ethical scoring delineation here?
I have a hard time with it because on the one hand, I'm like, look, drawing fouls is a skill. If you're so physical that they can't stop you and they have to foul you, like that's a skill. Getting to the line helps your team. It puts a foul on the other team, which can take key players out of the game. Like this has always been a thing in NBA strategy. You know, hey, he's got 3 fouls. Go at him, right? On the other hand, some of these are so egregious. The ones that bother me the most, and everybody's got their own fouls that bother them, are the ones where jump shooters fall down. Those are the ones that absolutely drive me crazy, especially when it's a big man. Like those ones drive me crazy. In unrelated news, Joel Embiid had he had 14 free throws in his 48-point performance last year versus the Washington Wizards.
Hayes, are you down with the ethical scoring?
I mean, yeah, to a degree. Here's the thing. Attack them. If they're in foul trouble, that's what DeMar DeRozan does so great. Yeah. It's a skill to be. It's a skill to be able to draw a foul. It's a skill to be able to target somebody who does it, both in coaching and in execution by the players, to be able to target somebody who is in foul trouble. You should do it. It's easy points. It also gets somebody off the court. There's a lot of benefit to doing it. I think more teams should do it.
Yeah, I don't think a player should be punished for if they're an ethical scorer or not. They are adapting to what the environment that is being provided for them. So if anybody should be punished for ethical scoring or non-ethical scoring, it should be the NBA and the way they are officiating this game. Okay, let's stick with the Spurs. Yesterday, Shams Charania reported that Gregg Popovich's absence from the Spurs was the result of a mild stroke suffered on November 2nd. There is no timetable for his return to the bench right now. What's next for the Spurs and what's next for Pop? That was on the mind of Jeff Garcia. So let's go back out to him and Locked On Spurs.
So expect Coach Mitch Johnson to continue to be the interim head coach until further notice. At this point, you got to wonder if Popovich is going to put his health first, if the team is going to ask him to put his health first versus trying to come back this season. You know, perhaps it's better for him just to sit out the rest of the season and figure out, if he's 100% ready to go for one more season next year or whatnot. Also a good thing, too, about the release and the Spurs finally saying something is that it takes kind of like the questioning about it, the guessing out of it, rumors out of it. Now we know exactly what happened. It was a mild stroke, and hopefully Pop will come back whenever he's ready, 100%.
These are always delicate topics because it's a personal health. Obviously, they wanted to have some privacy around this, but they felt the need to say something because, as Jeff was alluding there, people were starting to have questions about what was going on. But what do you think is best for everyone involved with the limited information that you have right now, Hayes?
I mean, I don't have very much information. I just have what you gave me. No, but
right.
On the side, I just hope that.
But I mean, I'll say like Jeff is alluding to there that it might be best for everyone when all this is said and done to move on from the legendary coach and move in a different direction. I mean, are you in agreement with that or?
Yeah, it may be time for Pop to transition to a role still if he wants to stay connected to basketball that's outside of him coaching. And I know that may be something big for him, to do, but there's a lot of things that Pop can do to still be attached to stay attached to the game and to the Spurs and to still help development of the players that he's built relationships and he's involved in the development. All that's important, right? But it your health has to, and Pop's he's over 70. Like at some point it catches up with all of us, and I think that. It's facing your own mortality in a way, but it may be needed. It's not to say the Pop still can't be a great asset to whoever takes over the Spurs and players for a lot of time left, but maybe the rigors of coaching and the ins and outs and traveling are something that he should look at moving on from.
That man was stationed overseas in Europe, in Central Europe during the Cold War, in positions that there's just not a lot of public information about what exactly it is that he did. So Pop gets to do whatever he wants as far as I'm concerned, because there's no way that I would be able to tell that man what he can and can't do. I think the thing with Pop is he's always had such a great perspective on life, and he's a pretty rational guy by all accounts. I think when it's time for him to go, he'll know. And I think that he's got to be, because of what he's accomplished, he's got to be afforded that opportunity to make that decision on his own. And I'm pretty confident the Spurs as an organization will allow him that.
I'm going to throw into the mix here. Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype did a feature where he went behind the scenes on the Pacers bench and talked about just how difficult it is with the travel and the lack of sleep. It's very difficult to be a head coach of the NBA and really a head coach of any professional organization. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the mind. I covered the Hornets. Steve Clifford had issues with sleep that he had to overcome to get back into the head coaching game. So this is a difficult topic. And Matt, you're alluding to it. Like, they've got to let Pop do whatever he wants, because I think particularly when you're a smaller market, like, you can't really afford any reputational damage that would come from a acrimonious divorce from a legendary coach. So
yeah, that'd be disastrous. I'm pretty confident Peter Holt won't allow for that either. I think that they've got such a strong relationship with ownership. I'm not necessarily concerned there.
Okay, coming up, will the Cavaliers ever lose again? The odds say it's likely, but never tell me the odds. Let's check the Cavs schedule and see if we can find the L next on Locked On NBA. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, and I've got a hunch about the Panthers. I think Bryce Young has finally figured it out. I think he's for real. I'd be looking at some stats in the middle of the game for him. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. You are going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste one of those genius hunches that you have, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. There is a free daily Locked On podcast for your favorite NBA team. All you have to do is search your podcast app for Locked On and your favorite team today. With a win over what's left of the 76ers last night, the Cavs became the 6th team in NBA history to start a season 13-0. Danny Cunningham of Locked On Cavs is beginning to wonder, though, how long this magical ride can last.
That was a very easy spot for Philadelphia to just roll over and say, you know what? You guys are 12-0. We don't have our best players. I don't know that Philadelphia tries quite as hard or has as good of a game as they had if the Cavs are not unbeaten. And I think that's what we're going to keep seeing until the Cavs have a loss. Friday night, they play Chicago. Chicago's coming off a really big win on Wednesday against the Knicks. This team looks tired. They've played 13 basketball games in 22 days. That's a ridiculous stretch. And on Friday, it becomes 14 basketball games in 24 days. And Sunday, it becomes 15 basketball games in 26 days. That's a really, really tough stretch. And if the Cavs find a way to win on Friday and push this winning streak to 14, the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday are going to give them every single thing they have. There's going to be a pride that every organization takes in being the team that ends the Cavs winning streak. It will end at some point. I don't know when. But until they lose, they're going to get every single team's best shot.
Okay, well, on this show, we have one of the hosts of Locked On Hornets and one of the hosts of Locked On Bulls, so this should be an interesting conversation. As you look ahead of the schedule, they've got Bulls, Hornets, the Celtics next Tuesday. I mean, if they stay unbeaten for that game, wow. Pelicans, Raptors, Hawks twice. They've got the Celtics again on December 1st. So I'll throw it to you, Hayes. when do you see them losing? Are you going to dare pick the Chicago Bulls? All right, let's see it.
The Bulls are beating the Cleveland Cavaliers
Let's go.
The Bulls, like they were already close to beating the Cleveland Cavaliers. We had over 20 turnovers in that game. We allowed for 60 points in the paint. The Bulls are actually riding some confidence and some momentum right now. We're fully healthy. We were missing Jalen Smith in that game. He's been really important for us off the bench as well. Zach LaVine's cooking. And listen, heavy is the crown. I don't want to hear nothing about how many games they played in 14, 15 days. Heavy is the crown. Yes, you're going to get the best shot, and you're going down on Friday in the NBA Cup against the Chicago Bulls. How about that?
Love it. Love that. I picked them the other night to get the upset. Couldn't get it done. The Jalen Smith thing is absolutely huge. I do think they lose to either the Bulls or the Hornets. I'm going to take the coward's way out and say it's one of those. They won't make it to the Celtics game undefeated. Also, Hayes, I want to ask you this. I think that they need to lose because when these teams start trying to get, like last night, didn't play well, got by. When you start getting away from process because you're just winning games and you're just trying to keep the streak going, it gets you away from building those habits that you need to actually compete in the playoffs. I think the Cavs need a loss. Do you?
I do too. Yeah, it's time.
Doug?
And losses also help you, they teach you things about your team. Because, I think it's been difficult for me to watch them and understand like what exactly the weaknesses are because it is a different thing that steps up every night, whether it's Mitchell or Garland or the bench, as we saw a couple of nights ago, and just to understand what adjustments they need to make, whether it's to roster or scheme, those shine most brightly in losses. As far as which game, look, if they do get by the Bulls, I think the Hornets could be a tough matchup because they are due for a decent shooting night. They do have good shooters. Brandon Miller's in a three-point shooting slump. LaMelo Ball is absolutely locked in. And it doesn't matter if they are down 10, 15, or 20 going into the fourth quarter. If you've got LaMelo Ball in the fourth quarter, you've got a shot to shock the world. And so, yeah, absolutely. I give the Hornets a decent shot at picking up that win.
You mean shock the world? You mean shock the world by how many shots he's going to take? Is that how many? Is that?
Well, listen, when everyone else is not hitting, as we talked about with Giannis, if no one else is going to hit a shot, somebody's got to hit a shot. Heavy is the crown, as Hayes said.
We got to have some Hornets talk on the show next week. We got to get into the Hornets here.
Well, I want to do some rookie talk. Tijan Salon got a couple of starts. He's been interesting, but there have been a lot of interesting rookie performances, including one we didn't get a chance to talk about. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Jared McCain from the 76ers looking amazing in that loss that they took. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. There's only one game tonight, so we'll have plenty of time to talk about that tomorrow. The Mavericks face off a game, as Matt does the air quotes. The Mavericks face off against the Jazz in Utah. It's on NBA TV, but I don't count that as a national TV game. It seems part of a trend of days to start the season with like 11 plus games, followed by slim selections on the next night. What's going on here with the schedule? Is this a quirk of them implementing the NBA Cup? What's happening here, Matt?
Yeah, it's the Cup. They want to avoid teams on the second night of a back-to-back. And so if you're going to do that and you're going to have most teams playing in Cup games, which you are going to have on most Tuesdays and Fridays, then you're going to wind up with this kind of scenario where you have a Thursday with just one game. I've gone back and forth on this where it's like, come on, how do we only have one game? And then one night it's like there's too many games. But those nights with so many games are so kind of endemic and important for league pass and kind of for following the league. You love those nights when everybody's playing. And you don't want as many back-to-backs. I actually kind of wonder if there's too many games on a night that like just should having a night off could give you 2 days to build a little bit more excitement for the Cup, for it being 2 days, give everybody an off night. And there's all there is to talk about in the NBA is the next game, the Cup games. That to me actually might be better than being like, hey, here's a bone. Here's Mavs Jazz. Who wants to watch Mavs Jazz? Which the answer is nobody. Nobody wants to watch this game. Mavs should roll here. So I just feel like there's maybe an opportunity to get a night clear to build more media hype for the Cup games on Fridays.
Hayes, your thoughts?
I do think there needs to be more pay. Like, there's one game on tonight. There's 13 games on Friday. Like, I get it that Tuesdays and Fridays are Cup days, but like, you could find a better way to spread it out and sparse it out. Like, it's a lot of basketball. It's a lot of games to be played, and I'm not one of the people who say lessen the schedule, but I think you can find a way to kind of spread it out on more nights. And why do cup games only have to be on 2 nights of the week? Like you can make cup games, you can designate games. I think the WNBA does their Commissioner's Cup that way. It's like, it's not on specific days of the week, but you just have games that are marked as cup games. I know it's kind of harder to track, but people will adapt. They're all regular season games anyway. They all count towards your regular season total. So you can spread it out that way. It shouldn't be a night where you have 13 games on one night and one game. As somebody who has to cover the game night on Friday nights, you're killing me, NBA. You're killing me. You're killing me.
Well, no one wants to have the 82 game discussion because I think people think it's like people think it's not even worthy of having because the NBA won't consider it. But if they consider expansion, if they want to do more stuff like the NBA Cup, I just think they keep making these adjustments, whether it's get rid of back-to-backs or NBA Cup. They keep making all of these adjustments, but there's this 82 game number that they always they're hitting their head on the ceiling. Something has to crack at some point, I think. So, Matt, you want to have that. You don't want to have the injury discussion, but you do want to have the 82 game discussion.
He's been
because it's just like
for like the last 2 weeks. He just says a little something every week about lessening the schedule. Go ahead, man.
It's such a great solve here. So Joe Mazzulla last night after the Cup games was talking about how he wished it was like an independent thing for the regular season, and other people have mentioned that too. And I think there's probably a little bit of momentum towards it because people generally, I think probably if you did a poll, it's going to be close, but I think most people like the Cup. And I am at the point of if the travel and athleticism means that we can't keep these players healthy, and the NBA's tried, and you can't manage to have the games in the number of months that you have, just take the fewer games. Give us better games that will make for better ratings that you can sell at the same price. Like, that's where it comes out as. If you're still trying to get by on gate revenue, come on, man. It's 2024. Like, come on, man. I just feel like there's so many opportunities. If you were to take the Cup and expand it and have that fill in and then reduce the regular season, maybe that's like there's a balance to be found in there somewhere. Just like a small, we're not talking about massive reduction here, a little bit. Talking to players and how they say, if you just give me one extra night off, you're going to get such a better performance out of me during the season. It's really kind of opened my eyes to it because they're like, off of 2 days full rest, I feel like an entirely different person rather than every other night.
And shrinkflation is in. It's all the rage. I just went to my favorite local restaurant and it's same quality, bowl of mac and cheese, same quality, but it felt like a little less. And I was okay with that because it still tasted the same. I would rather them shrink it a little bit, and not too much, but a little bit. And if it means that I get the same level of cheese and noodle deliciousness, that is what I'm asking from the NBA. Give me the same cheese and noodle deliciousness, even if you have to shrink it down a little bit. Okay. We got to have this discussion again because there's much more noodle and cheese talk that I have on this subject. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts. That includes on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy tonight's action, what little action there is. Enjoy it. Be kind to each other, and we are going to see you right back here to close the week out on Locked On NBA.